Hi, I'm Brent Lawrence. I'm a composer and guitar player. I originally am from Roanoke, Virginia, a town in the Appalachian Mountains area of Southwest Virginia. Uh, I was in composing in the wilderness in 2017. It was a fantastic and mind-blowing experience, especially since I had just moved to Oregon that past year. So a little bit about me. I um, teach at a small school in North Carolina near Charlotte called Pfeiffer University. Just completed my PhD at the University of Oregon in music composition, and I really enjoy getting to write music and work with artists and instrumentalists uh, and all sorts of creative people. And it's been really exciting to see this project and where it's going and how we can all work together.
Hi, my name is Charlotte Bird. I live in San Diego, California, and my work is primarily textile based, both art quilts and sculptural work. I'm a real visual person, and I think in pictures. Brent's composition was an opportunity to think about distance and panorama. Um, he talked about climbing up the ridge overlooking the Teclanica River Valley and how vast it seemed to him. The Teclanica River Valley is one of my favorite places in Denali National Park. I've walked many miles along the river bar, looking at rocks, listening to the sounds of the river, lunching on a bench above the river. Listening to On Distant Hills, I heard that depth of vista, the high fields in flute and marimba, the water rushing downstream in the rhythms of the whole ensemble, and the bass clarinet as the river slows. Teclanica Cadences was my attempt to visualize that vastness of the panorama. I tried several times to make a two-dimensional art quilt, and I finally decided that the only way to convey the depth of field was a sort of zigzag book structure that moved up into the valley, into the foothills, and on into the high peaks.
Hi, my name is Nancy Hausle-Johnson. I live in Fairbanks, Alaska. I oil paint, but mostly I do pottery, and I got into working on tiles and doing tile murals. That's what I've been doing for the last 30 years. And I really like the outdoors. I like climbing to the top. So this piece really resonated with me because I know what it feels like to climb and keep wanting to reach the top and be out there in the wilderness at McKinley Park. So the music, when I listened to the music, it just kind of lifted me up and made me want to climb and go farther back in the distance. And I put a raven in it because the raven was a good way to see the view, and the music, as your music built and climbed, I felt like the raven was just climbing up higher and riding the wind and the waves up there and looking down on the vegetation and in the environment. And I just felt like I was a part of it. So I did a view of Mount McKinley and the tundra and put a raven in it that was kind of in the process of taking off, ready to climb and soar over the mountains. It's a feeling. I once wrote a poem. I feel a need to breathe clean air, see blue sky, and climb as high as I can go. And this music made me feel that way when I was trying to decide what I was going to do.
So the concept behind this piece really came from the one hike we went on. I guess I wish maybe it had come from multiple hikes, but there was one hike that really stood out to me, which was when we hiked above the Teclanica River Basin, that overlook. I wish that I knew the name of that outcrop that we were on, if it had one. That was one of my favorite hikes, just because of how the landscape changed as we went. Because we started off from the road, we just pulled off on the side of the road and went, which, never having been to Alaska or Denali before this, was really strange. But we're bushwhacking and climbing over things. There's no trail. I'm afraid I'm going to be eaten by a bear. That's not true. I'm hyperbolizing, but and then we climb out of all this vegetation onto onto this outcrop, and it was just such a panoramic view um, of the landscape, and the river was of course in the foreground, and this jagged sort of ridge to the other side of the river, and it was a very visceral experience for me. And um, so what actually happened was that I wound up sort of writing words in my head at that point. I have a background. The first music I ever wrote was, singer songwriter type of stuff. I have a background in songwriting, and so sometimes that's where my brain defaults to. And so I was scribbling down some, I guess, lyrics onto my notepad. And when we got back, or when we were in Coal Creek and composing, I was sort of taking those and sort of trying to blend that with the musical ideas I was also having. And so that's how the sung part of my pieces came to be, which I think is um, kind of the framing device, um, more or less, for the piece. Whether the performers like that or not is up to them, and you know, sometimes cellists don't like it when you make them sing, but um, it's I find mixing sort of genres in that way to be fun.
Do you remember in one of your introductions at, I think it was the Fairbanks premiere, you talked a little bit about Carl Sagan's Blue Dot?
I do, yeah.
Well,
I had
that's
forgotten
where
about
I
that.
started,
Hmm.
because I didn't realize it was Carl Sagan, but I knew that I tried really hard to think about the blue dot. And I think that's what sent me to that kind of sense of vastness
Hmm.
that you were talking about. I just remembered the blue dot a while
Yeah.
when I was trying to come up with this stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Now that you mentioned that, I remember because I was writing my program notes, and
Mhm.
I was looking off, and from where we were standing, um, you could see our van that we were driving around in, and for some reason, that the seeing the van just being that big in the distance reminded me of the pale blue dot, because I don't know, it was just in
Well,
my
it
head
was a
at that
good
point.
hook for me. So
Good. Yeah, well, I guess it just didn't seem like we had hiked that far, or that we were
yeah,
that
and
far
you
away.
had. That's a ways.
Yeah.
Did you get to go up higher? I mean, did you have a feeling like you still wanted to go climb higher up there? I mean, when I listened
I
to, go ahead.
I had that feeling the entire time, because I don't know, whenever, and this feeling sort of started while I was in Denali, um, but it goes for other places that I've been since. But it's really weird to me to see mountains that don't have trees on them. I'm going somewhere with this. It's really weird for me to see mountains that don't have trees on them, because I'm from the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, which are just rolling mountains with trees. But you can see the elevation change so much more clearly when it's not covered with trees, and it
Yeah.
looks so much easier to climb. Looks
Oh yeah,
easier to climb.
that's that mystery about well, we'll just go to the next ridge.
Right, because it just
And then
you just
there's
think you can
another
walk
one.
up. Yeah. And so yes, absolutely. I we were up pretty high on
Hmm.
the outcrop we were on, but of course you're surrounded by other ridges. And I remember thinking that the entire time I was there, and not just in that spot, but everywhere we were, that I was like, man, it looks so easy just to walk up the side of that, and maybe the view would be different from up there.
Well, your
Yeah, and
music just makes you feel like you're climbing and you want to go a little bit higher and see over the next ridge. And uh, I really like the music. I mean, it made
yeah,
me feel
I did
good. It
too.
brings back good memories when I go out hiking, because I don't I'm slow, but I always go to the top.
Yeah.
And it's a really good feeling, because I'm not a city person anymore. And
Mhm.
I really like the outdoors. So the music, your music just really, to me, captured the feeling out there at McKinley Park.
Well, I was wanting to really capture the visceral nature of the experience, especially for somebody who hadn't, seen those sites before, and that just that depth of field that there
Yeah,
is that you don't have. It's not the same in other places. Just the vastness and bigness of it, and that's something that I think y'all's art captures really, really well. Is that sense of depth? Something I really appreciate about what y'all did, and I'm glad that communication was able to
yeah,
be made.
Well, there's
yeah,
no, and like back where you're at, you probably have trails that you walk on and you have a lot more underbrush. Out there, there's less underbrush. And if you ever get into some of that walking out there, you find it's really uneven and there's no trails.
Hmm.
And it's going to take you longer than you think to get from point A to point B.
Oh
But
yeah, and walking on top of bowling balls
yes,
yes.
sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, that not having trails is one of those things that makes the distances deceptive.
Hmm. Yeah, because it's harder to measure, and you feel like you're kind of going in a straight line, I guess, since trails are more curvy. And
Yeah,
uh, that's something I've actually really missed since going on hikes in other places. Is the the uh, well, I guess having to stick to a trail, or maybe
yeah,
having the confidence slash resources to be able to not.
yeah. I've done a little bit of hiking in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and the density of the forest, I wanted a trail
Yeah,
because I didn't know where I was going.
yeah,
but it would
yeah.
also be harder to see the animals. I mean, up there, you can see a bear
Yeah,
from a distance. You can see the caribou. You can see the birds flying and the doll sheep up there in the mountains. You may not be able to get really close to them, but you can see them.
You
And
can
I
see it.
imagine when the tundra, I mean, when the forest is really dense from back east, you only get to see like so far into the forest.
Yeah,
And
and what's back there, you have no idea.
no,
that bear could be climbing up right behind you.
Hopefully not.
Yeah,
But it was just that was it was that year. So 2016 was when I moved from the East Coast to Oregon, and so that was um, a lot different too, because Oregon has vastness in its own way, and in a couple different ways. But then to go from Oregon to Alaska, that's a whole different level. So
yeah.
my
Quantum change.
quantum change, yes. Just
has
even
your music this? Have you kind of incorporated some of your feeling you have from this music into new music?
well, after the composing in the wilderness trip, I um, actually joined a group called Landscape Music, which is a group all about composing based on landscapes, and so it's something I really, really enjoy. Um, I had written a landscape piece, a song for guitar and voice um, before that, but having done that, and it was one of my favorite pieces at the time, and then doing composing in the wilderness made me think, this is something I really am inspired by and like doing. And so it's not something I've been able to do so much recently because of various things. But it's definitely something that I like, and I'm passionate about, and um, I don't know. It's just something about the. I feel like there's a story in a lot of landscapes, and that you can
Yeah.
draw out of them either by the people that live there, or the actual literal how the landscape has changed over time. Um, I just feel like it's a subject that's very rich with inspiration for me.
Well, I think this project, the composing in the wilderness, was probably a beginning of that. Um, to be someplace that you had no real experience with, to think about landscape in a perhaps a bigger way.
Yeah, and I think I think what it made me want to do was to be able to write music about landscapes that I was even more familiar with.
Hmm.
Because there's, any sort of vast landscape, um, when you first see it, there's a certain awe or uh, shock value is not the right word, but
Yeah, I know what you
there's a
mean.
certain um, awe-inspiring moment that you have that might influence art or music, whatever your medium is. But I think there's something deeper than that too. Um, that because, for instance, growing up in the Blue Ridge Mountains, I didn't really appreciate that landscape until I wasn't around it for a while or until I
Uh-huh.
saw other things because it was just what I knew. But sort of seeing other things and then knowing how that landscape is different, um, and you kind of appreciate the things you know more and on a deeper level. And so I think that's
Hmm.
um, finding some areas um, like that is something I'd like to explore too, past the "oh wow, this is so crazy" uh, sentiment.